If you've been following me on Twitter, you know I've been struggling with this monstrosity. But I have good news. It works. And it's within the redstone limit. And everything works. So, if you don't know what this is the classic game Lights Out. It was a little handheld game from, I believe, the 90s, maybe 80s. I don't know. I grew up with one. Just this little handheld game, little 5x5 grid of lights. You try and turn them all off. Each light will toggle the light directly next to it, so in like a star pattern or a cross pattern. So you'll see if I hit this light, it's going to toggle this light off, this light on, this light on, this light off. Pretty simple idea, makes for a pretty good puzzle, right? And the goal is just to turn them all off. Pretty sweet. Okay, so here's the issues that I came across. First off, redstone limit. Skyblock has a pretty strict redstone limit on how many redstone things you can have off go in quick succession. So basically it ramps up and ramps down. I could put a bunch of repeaters and set them on max delay in this, but that doesn't really help the issue. It just delays it. So I had to use some clever ways around that. The biggest one I displayed right here. So this is the use of repeaters, or the use of comparators instead of repeaters. So repeaters, you'll see I made this line long enough to saturate the redstone, and you'll see it gets up to 7% on the length of a stone button press. If it was a wooden button press, it would get even higher because you have more repeaters turning on at once. So 7%. Now you press this one, you only get 2%, and that's only from the actual button going off. So you'll see it actually starts going down as the redstone goes along. Sometimes the thing doesn't even show up. So comparators, your best friend when it comes to making complicated redstone things on Skyblock, because they don't contribute towards the redstone limit. Pretty cool. Okay. So that thing down, on to the next. So next problem I had was making some sort of flip-flop. Usually you would use pistons or something, but there's a few designs, or quote-unquote silent designs, that use droppers instead. This is by far the simplest. So you'll see it's just a dropper, item in it, two droppers facing each other. The way this works is that this redstone will actually power this dropper and spit its thing out, but it'll also power this comparator and spit the thing back. The problem with this, even though it works in single player, you'll see the item left this one, does not work in multiplayer because this repeater isn't getting turned on by this piece of redstone. And you'll see in most scenarios it does get turned on, but for some reason on Skyblock, if the comparator is getting the inventory of a container like a dropper, it does not react to any other redstone signal. I think that's an optimization thing, but that breaks this fairly simple flip-flop. So I had to do something a bit tricky. Basically, I'm triggering both of these droppers with one redstone line, and I have some hoppers set up. Still fairly simple, not as small, not as quick, but it works. The only problem is it is very, very dependent on location whether or not it's actually going to work. So you'll see in this location, these actually have to be flipped the other way around, otherwise it doesn't work. And if I move it over by a block, I'll have to flip it the other way. So now you'll see this toggles on and off. So when I finished the thing, some of my cells didn't work properly. I had to flip some of these flip-flops around. So let's look at a cell real quick. So pretty complicated. Because of my size constraints, I wanted to keep them all pretty tight together. You'll see these red lines where my boundaries are, and you do see I overstep them, but that's okay because they sort of flow into each other basically. So you have the signal coming from the button, and it goes out in 4 directions, and it has to do this so that it can trigger the cell next to it. You'll see I built a pseudo cell over here, and you'll see these kind of feed into each other in this little X pattern. That's the basic logic between the cells triggering each other, but without cascading down the entire board. Very simple, but it works. Once again, using comparators instead of repeaters saves yourself some redstone limit. So it goes through this X, and then it just makes its way down. And the reason it goes down so far is you need enough room back up top to snake all of these torches around to each separate light. So these torches need room to snake their way up, and I do some fancy stuff. I tore away some of the torches so you could see this better. I do some fancy stuff to get the other 2 lights lit up. And then you'll see the very simple T flip-flop here. Just 2 droppers, 2 hoppers. They feed into each other and come out. Once again, comparators instead of repeaters, and then up to the lights. You'll see it works. And it also works from this button because it's cascading down into that cell. Then it's just a matter of putting everything together, making sure every block is perfect. You'll see as I go down here, some of these flip-flops are reversed from each other. That's something I had to do last second to fix them. But with all that put together, you have a working lights out game that stays pretty comfortably within the redstone limit.